On my stream the other night, somebody brought up that the number of Mythic Plus dungeons being done in Dragonflight Season 2 compared to Season 1 is much, much smaller. And sure enough, just the next day I found this graphic on Reddit saying the same thing, that we've really fallen off since Dragonflight Season 1. So in this video, we're going to try and figure out why that is, considering factors both in-game and outside of game, and try and figure out what Blizzard can do to change things and turn them around in Dragonflight Season 3. So taking a look at this graph, the red line represents the number of keys done in Season 1 each week, and the yellow line represents Season 2. Of course, Season 1 Week 1 is super duper hyped because it's brand new content, and it's going to have the most keys completed by far, followed by an immense drop in Season 1 Week 2, but after that, Season 1 held pretty steady at the low 2 millions and high 1 millions. Season 2 got off to a solid start with a couple 2 million weeks, but then starting in Week 3 tanked and has continued to trend downwards. This is a big dip from Season 1, so what's the deal? Before we pile on WoW too hard, let's consider extenuating factors. There have been some pretty major game releases in the last couple of months, so let's consider some of the ones I think WoW players are probably most interested in. The biggest one being, obviously, Diablo 4. I know I took a Diablo 4 hiatus, as did a big portion of my BNet friends list, many of whom are still busy slaying demons in Sanctuary. If I've got my dates right, Dragonflight Season 2 released May 10th, and Diablo 4 Early Access started June 1st, which would line up with Week 3 of Dragonflight and Diablo 4's release really well. Diablo 4's full release was June 6th, which might continue to explain the massive dip in keys we saw in Weeks 3 and 4. Diablo 4 Season 1 also comes out July 20th, so it will be interesting to see how many M+ keys get done that week. My guess is we see another big downward trend. WoW's most direct competition outside of Blizzard's own games, Final Fantasy XIV also released an expansion on June 20th, which would correlate with Dragonflight Season 2's Week 6, but while things continued to trend downwards that week, we didn't see a massive dip. And finally, at least for this content creator, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has caused me many a late night, and painfully, for me anyway, Zelda released May 12th almost directly along with Dragonflight Season 2, so it's hard to see the effect it may have had on keys getting done. Still, the point is that WoW players and gamers in general have a lot of options right now. I'm sure there's more, but those are the ones that have been strongest on my radar, and admittedly, I have done way less keys this season and I've sunk my teeth into Zelda and Diablo. I've still maintained a main at a pretty high IO score, but last season I had 4 alts that were all doing 20s or higher. This season I only have my main and a couple alts that I've barely touched, so I'm also guilty of contributing to this fewer keys getting done this season. The point here is WoW players have had a lot of other games to distract them from Season 2, and maybe we check on these numbers in a few weeks and see things start to level back to the norm. Maybe that's no worries, and maybe Blizzard doesn't really care if a big population migrates from one of their games to another. I have to believe there are other factors at play here though. Players might not be as quick to abandon ship and stay abandoned if they're really enjoying Season 2, and I know the sentiment from a lot of players I hear from on my stream and Discord and the comments of my videos is that Season 2 has had some major flaws. These are mostly healers for the record because that's the nature of my channel, but let's take a look at some in-game reasons why overall keys done might be down. Despite some very recent major nerfs to dungeons, I think the consensus is that dungeons in Dragonflight Season 2 are harder than what we've been used to in the past. This could contribute to keys being down in a couple ways. If players are discouraged and find that the difficulty is spoiling their enjoyment of the game, then a more casual experience like Diablo might be really appealing. Not gonna lie, I think I've definitely fallen into this line of thinking a bit, where keys just seemed so painful for a while and smashing a Diablo 4 Nightmare Dungeon was just more appealing. You might also consider that if keys are actually harder, there are probably more keys not being completed in general. One thing that's a little unclear with this graphic is, does it include just keys that were completed or keys that were started and not finished? I think the whole idea of how hard dungeons should be is an interesting one, and I think there's a big difference in opinion between super high-end players who like a challenge and your average Joe Pug that doesn't want his soul crushed every play session. Nerfs are in, but later than they were in Season 1, so it'll be interesting to see if that coincides with more players deciding to do some keys. I know another big one for a lot of people is affixes. Affixes are just in a weird place right now, in my opinion. In the early days of Mythic Plus, affixes were front and center when it came to the difficulty of timing a key. Over time, the community has complained about affixes a lot, and Blizzard has responded by nerfing them over and over and also removing many of them. This season we added in a couple more, but lost the seasonal affix completely. I still hear people complain about affixes constantly. In my personal opinion, a good affix is one that 1. Affects everyone, and 2. Enables everyone to interact with it. Incorporeal and Afflicted are perfect examples of the yin and yang of this idea. They're very similar in the idea that they spawn a couple ads that need to be dealt with or something bad happens, but Incorporeal can be dealt with by literally every spec in the game, while Afflicted can only be dealt with by healers and hybrid classes. To me, this makes Incorporeal a tolerable affix and Afflicted a crappy one. Let's remember that affixes are going to be annoying. That is literally the purpose for their existence. There are ever-changing weekly obstacle to timing a key. And if nothing changes in Mythic Plus from week to week, I think things would get really stale. So I don't think we need to like every affix necessarily, but I do think there's a difference between a good one and a poorly designed one, and Incorporeal and Afflicted really highlight that difference. Look, I've got viewership of mostly healers, and we've long felt disproportionately picked on when it comes to affixes in general. I've got a whole video about how dumb it was to remove Explosive and replace it with Afflicted, replicating the exact same issues we had with Explosive, but exacerbating them. I do think it would be cool if more affixes had either some kind of positive buff given for completing them properly, or a different negative effect than, whoa, a bunch of damage going out, like decreased movement speed or DPS, so that they feel like more of a group-wide problem. In hindsight, I think the loss of the seasonal affix was a lazy fix to this problem, or attempted fix at the problem. We've had seasonal affixes that have absolutely increased the level of fun and strategy that goes into a dungeon, like Encrypted in Shadowlands and Reaping and Awakened in BFA. Thundering was an afterthought and a joke, and I think people disliked it so much that they were happy to see seasonal affixes go without remembering that we've had some really good ones that actually increased our enjoyment of Dungeon in the past. Just getting rid of seasonal affixes is kind of a lazy fix and a lazy alternative to just designing a really good one that players are going to enjoy and that's actually going to enhance Mythic Plus in general. Another thing that might be contributing to less keys getting done this season is the rewards that we get and the gearing system. So while overall I like the gearing system in Season 2, it does kind of beg the question, was gearing up too easy and did rewards just come too fast in Season 2? If you came in from Season 1 at a more or less complete item level, we'll say 420 plus, you could pretty much handle 15 to 17 dungeons in a reasonable group week 1. That means you're getting KSM week 2, quite likely KSH week 3 or 4, and from there, the only realistic reward for the majority of the player base that can't compete for the top 0.1% is dungeon ports. If you're getting Keystone Hero week 3, dungeon ports aren't far off for you. Once you've got those dungeon ports, there's nothing for you to chase except empty rating if you aren't going for that top 0.1%, which is an unrealistic goal for most players. I really think Blizzard should consider this casual, hardcore population of players and add in another reward for the, say, top 5 or 1% of players. That's a big chunk of people with nothing to gain after a handful of weeks into the season. So like most things in life, I imagine the truth lies somewhere in the middle, where it's a combination of these new games that came out that people are really interested in, and maybe some things about Season 2 that weren't quite perfect. But I'd love to hear from you guys in the comment section. What do you guys think is causing the dip in Mythic Plus dungeons being done Dragonflight Season 2? Leave me a comment below. Also, if you guys enjoyed the video, you didn't fall asleep this far into it, please give me a thumbs up. Helps me out a lot. Subscribe to see more of my content in the future. And don't forget to check out my stream right here on YouTube, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Got a great community of WoW players where we heal keys and have lots of fun all night long. Love to see you there sometime. Guys, until next time, happy healing.